Hello and welcome on this Saturday morning. We've switched this week's event because of I wasn't really feeling well. So we're having this session on a Saturday, which is atypical for us. For those who are new to this channel, I want to welcome you. For returning viewers, also welcome to today's discussion. We're going to be talking about how you choose an admission coach if you're going through the MBA application process. So I am Susan Barishai. I'm the founder of C Admissions, and which is an admission coaching firm focused on supporting MBA candidates through their MBA application journey. So today, what we're going to cover, as usual, we have a brief presentation, and then we're going to move into Q&A. We have had registrants that have asked questions through our registration form, and we will be answering those. But also, if you have questions in any of the platforms that you are watching this, please feel free to write your question down, and I'll try to answer as many as I can within our allotted time. So a little bit of logistics. So today what I'm going to be covering is the MBA journey, briefly talking, of course, about that. When hiring a coach, what are some of the things that you need to keep in mind? What does the coach offer? What support does the coach provide? And then the coach checklist that you should keep in mind, and then the Q&A that follows. Next week, we are going to be talking about the waitlist candidate. So if you are in the application process and you are waitlisted, please join that session, register for the March 7th event, where we're going to talk about your waitlist game plan and the tips and tricks on what you need to do in order to be to strengthen your candidacy, and with the idea, of course, of getting off that waitlist. If you are going through this process and you're looking for support, I invite you to reach out for a consultation call. We spend 30 minutes talking about your profile and your background, so we can decide if this is a good fit and if we can support you on this journey. So with that, let's get started. So the MBA journey, you are really going to, if you're going through this process and are targeting round 1 or round 2 in the upcoming application cycle, you really want to start early and plan strategically. The word on the street, of course, this is not official statements from any of the schools, but we've seen an increase in applicants, and that means the increased competition, because none of the schools have reported that they're going to be increasing the class size. So this means, obviously, that more applicants are applying for the limited options that are available. We'll, of course, get the official numbers later, but at this point, I think you want to be mindful that anytime that there is a disruption in the job market, of course, there's going to typically, historically rather, it's going to be an increase in applicant pool. So why does this matter? This matters because you want to obviously present yourself in the most effective way to your target institutions. And also you want to make sure that you have time to deliver and present your candidacy in a way that makes you shine. Whether you are a consultant, a tech, coming from a tech background or non-traditional background, you still need to showcase yourself as someone who is going to be adding value to the classroom, and that will make you stronger than the next person who is also applying for the same coveted seat at these top MBA programs. You also want to build a roadmap and timeline for all components of the application and the journey. So you need to know what you will be, obviously what the journey looks like, not just the essays, not just the resume and the letters of recommendation. There's so much more in the application process. So whatever your assumptions are, anticipate 2 to 3 times more workload than what you anticipate, because that's, if you're going through this process for the first time, you don't know what you don't know. And in this process, you will realize just how much work is required. Of course, you're going to be reflecting a lot, and reflection requires time. So it's not something you can do in the last month. It does require reflection, and then crafting, and then recrafting, and then fine-tuning your materials. And then, of course, you need, anytime you're seeking feedback, and obviously you will need revisions, you are also dependent on other individuals. You can sit for a couple of hours and work on your materials, but that's typically not something that you submit immediately to the schools. It's something that you need to refine and fine-tune, and also ask for advice and see how that can be presented in a better way that reflects who you are, and of course what you bring to the table. So when hiring a coach, if you're considering hiring a coach, some of the things that you want to keep in mind is the application timing. A coach, particularly if you are hiring a coach for the full application process from beginning until the end, you do need to make sure that you have time to work with the coach from beginning until the end of the process. Like I said, there's not just essays and resume and letters of recommendations. There's so much more in the application journey. And if you hire a coach to coach you and walk the journey with you, it does, you will need you will need to have enough time to actually do that. Obviously, some coaches can provide you the test preparation necessary. Some coaches are just focused on the MBA application. So you want to discern, obviously, what those components are. Typically your coach that coaches your MBA application is not the coach that's going to teach you how to prepare for your test. So those are two separate kinds of coaching. And then you also want to evaluate your workload and other commitments. Obviously, everyone going through the MBA application journey is going to have a full-time job and other personal and professional or extracurricular activities that they are a part of. Sometimes your workload is very heavy, which means you're traveling and you have very long hours. This doesn't mean that things are going to get better. And typically, anytime I hear that, I always think, you are going to have more work and the time that you actually need to be away from your application. So what you want to do in those situations is really map out early plan and make sure that every single week you're doing something, moving the needle closer to getting your materials ready. And you may think, oh, it's a little bit too early. It's actually not, particularly if you have limited time. So you want to start as soon as possible. And then, of course, you also want to evaluate what kind of support you're looking for from a coach. Is this support that you need something that is more strategic, high level, or do you need a coach who is going to handhold you through that entire process? And that's something that only you know the answer to. So reflection and looking at what kind of resources you will have and what are the things that you will need, and then determine, of course, what kind of coach you will be requiring in this MBA application journey. The coach is, there are some do's and there are some don'ts. So a coach is going to provide this strategic guidance, feedback, and suggestions, and helping you really elevate your materials and your presentation of yourself, helping you, and that is in various different forms. So in written form, in the way you communicate with others, as well as the way you perform in an interview. It's going to also be holding you accountable. If you make promises that you will be delivering something, they will hold you to it. They're going to help you map out an actionable plan. They're going to help you brainstorm, workshop, etc. Obviously, every coach approaches things differently, so you're going to want to evaluate what are the things that you need. And have conversations with as many coaches as you can to really discern what are some of the things that they're going to be similar across the board, and what are some of the nuances that some offer that others may not necessarily do. The coach does not ghostwrite your materials. That is not an ethical practice. So if someone offers those, you want to really question that approach. And then the coach does not guarantee admission. There's a lot of components in the application process that determine that you can control, and that's how you present yourself, the amount of work that you put into, the amount of effort that you put into your materials. Who applies and how strong their candidacy is compared to yours is out of your control, and it's out of the admission and the coach's control. So they cannot guarantee admission to anyone. Who can benefit the most from hiring a coach? These are non-traditional backgrounds, so individuals who do not have business, like the quintessential, consultant, tech kind of background, or finance background. So individuals who really need to translate their experiences into a business school application. International students who may not necessarily understand the cultural nuances that are associated with particularly Western education systems. Those with technical trainings, oftentimes when I work with applicants that are, coming from a STEM background and have engineering careers, for example, one of the biggest challenges that they experience is translating the work that they do in a way that it's accessible to someone who's not an engineer. So a coach can be very beneficial to those individuals. And then those seeking maximum output, those who really want to put in the effort to increase their chances and make sure that they're presenting an application that is truly reflective of who they are and what it is that they're looking to achieve. The coach is not for individuals who have strong application skills. Perhaps they are really good at telling their story. They may not necessarily need a coach. Applicants who have tight deadlines, so a coach can't produce magic. They are going to walk with you through the process and help you refine and continuously refine until the material reflects who you are and what you want to communicate to the admission team. So if you have tight deadlines, a coach may not necessarily be able to help you that much. So keep that in mind when you start. Candidates, of course, with a strong support network, who have many people in their network that perhaps have MBAs, and they feel confident that they can present their story, then obviously you want to look at where you are investing your capital. And then those who are just putting in an application, which means not going to put in a lot of effort or not interested in putting a lot of effort in their application submission. The coach, they should not invest money in a coach, because the coach is not going to be, again, producing miracles for anyone. You need to put in the effort, and the coach can guide you along the way. So if you have questions about anything I said so far, please write your questions in the comment, and I will be answering those shortly. So what can a coach provide? The coach can provide individualized strategic plan, which means that there is not such a thing as, or at least in my book, there should not be such a thing as a cookie cutter application. Cookie cutter application doesn't make you stand out. You're going to be just another number, as opposed to really someone who has a individualized approach on how they're going to tell their story, what stories they're going to include, and how are they going to approach the entire application process. That is a very important component that a coach can provide. Of course, holistic profile enhancement, particularly if you start early. Obviously, if you come in 3 months before the application deadline, you are not going to necessarily have time to do any work on your application on, strengthening your candidacy. Rather, you'll be working on just putting together what you have in the most cohesive way to the, sharing that with the admission team. Whereas if you start early, you have a chance to also evaluate your profile and then enhance areas that make sense within the allotted amount of time that you have. Of course, a coach can provide guidance on navigating the challenges and weaknesses in your application. So how do you share those stories in a way that it's effective and it's a way that moves the application forward? Of course, they're going to provide also insider tips into the admission process. What are the do's and don'ts? And also, of course, the coach should help you avoid the guesswork. Sure, you can read a lot of blogs and a lot of videos on the application process, someone says one thing, another says another. Which one do you choose? Working with someone who knows your story from the beginning until the end of the process can and has an entire, process in putting together the application can help you really tell your story in the most effective way, because they're really looking at the full picture of your application as opposed to, generically speaking to the masses. So here's a checklist. Some of the things that you need to, of course, be mindful of when you are looking for a coach. The coach, you should look at their experiences and expertise. What are some of the things that, what are the things that they do? How long have they been doing this? What is their success rate? And those kinds of details. You're going to look at what is their approach to coaching and how personalized it is. If you don't want a personalized coaching, then of course that's also understandable, but you have to do the reflection internally first. What is it that you're looking for? But if you're working with a coach one-on-one, meaning not a class, the personalized approach is going to be key. And do they have a curriculum? Do they have a plan for you to follow? This way you are not lost. You are not, having the guesswork. You're not guessing with the coach. You are going through a curriculum of things that you need to accomplish, and obviously everything else is personalized. What are the resources and tools the coach provides? So is there a library of information that you can access? Are there workshops? What kinds of support you're going to get throughout the process? Then you're going to look at the feedback mechanisms. How does the coach evaluate, or how does the coach provide you with feedback? Is it just editing a text? In that case, you do not need to pay a coach that kind of money, but rather, you want someone, or you may want someone who is really going to provide you the guidance and look at the content of what you're producing from a strategic perspective. Also looking at the content and helping you, think about and refine certain areas in your application. What are some of the pitfalls of what you are sharing that can be perceived differently from an admission representative than what your intentions are? So there's a lot of details in here that you want to ask these kinds of questions when you have conversations and when you have consultation calls. Of course, when I work with a candidate, I look at the entire journey, not just until you submit the application, right? So this means if I start working with someone 3 months before round one, well, I anticipate that my entire journey is going to be at least 7 months, if not more, in that entire process of working together. So of course, compatibility and having a strong rapport is going to be very important to me, and it should also be to you as well, because you want to work with someone that you can have a conversation with, particularly given the fact that you will be working together for that amount of time at minimum, right? And there are situations where a year and a half or more that I'm working with someone through this entire process. And I calculate that not just until the application submission, but also the interview preparations, the final decisions, and any work that you will be doing before you actually start your MBA itself. And of course, you want to look at affordability and value. What are you getting for what you're investing in that coaching service? So how customized it is, first and foremost, what is your budget? And then what are the options out there? I do suggest that you have as many conversations as possible, and so you can get a sense of what coaches are providing, so that you can also, especially if you're starting this process new, you can also evaluate what is the biggest value that you're going to get in this entire process. So with that, I invite you to ask questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can so I can actually answer questions. 1 second. Excellent. Let me see. Wonderful. So let's ask some questions that came through the registration form. And like I said, if you have questions, please write it in the chat in whichever platform you are connecting with so that I can answer them on this live. So if I need help with just one aspect of my application, such as the essays, is a specific service that an admission consultant can provide? Absolutely. There are coaches who provide hourly service, and then there are coaches who provide full package service. Obviously, if you want specific coaching on one specific thing, you may want to go the hourly route, just because, unless they have like a package for that particular thing that you're looking for. But typically, you can get those kinds of services. Not everyone offers it, but there are definitely services out there that do provide hourly service that you can focus on just the things that you are interested in focusing on, as opposed to the full package. How should I approach a consultant when preparing for interviews? I initially struggle with articulating my value proposition. Interviews are hugely important in this process. And of course, it's about evaluating your communication abilities. How can you connect with the interviewer? There's just a lot of content preparation, body language preparation, and just the full spectrum of things that need to be prepared. I would suggest that when you work with a coach through the interview preparation process, or if you just want coaching from the interview perspective, once you submit your application, I would start your interview preparation process, even if you don't have an interview in hand. Typically, when you will have an interview in hand, you have about 2 weeks at max in most situations to have the actual interview. And most of the time, if you're starting from 0, 2 weeks is not enough to prepare for the interview, particularly when you're struggling with presenting your value to the interviewer. So start doing that early, and there are coaches who provide interview prep coaching only options available. That's probably something that you may want to consider, particularly if you are only looking for that service. You want to start your research early, align with who you want to work with, so that when you submit your application, you don't have to start your research at that point. I'm a reapplicant. What specifics I should be looking when choosing a consultant? As a reapplicant, you really want to look for someone who has the ability to help you refine your story when you are resharing it with the schools. You're obviously going to want to have that conversation slightly differently than someone who is starting from 0, from the perspective that, particularly when you have narrowed down your searches, you may want to share your initial application with the coach to see how they can support you. Not necessarily giving you a strategy, because most coaches will not do that without an agreement, but from the perspective of, do you align with the story they're thinking about helping you craft? And that's going to be important, because of course the coach is going to have a perspective on how they're going to approach your profile, and you're going to want to know if that aligns with your values and what you want to communicate with the school. So that's a good test to see also if the coach has been listening to what you've been sharing with him or her through this process. So that's a good test, particularly in narrowing down your selection. And then, of course, start early. As a reapplicant, you will have to showcase that you have grown since you have last applied. So if you start this process early, you may also want to showcase that you are strengthening your profile during this period of time. So after consultation call, what next steps should I make if I am still unsure if the consultant is right for me. Absolutely. So one of the things that I would suggest anyone looking for a coach is to have as many conversations with the coach's approach that aligns with you. So obviously there's many coaches out there. You're going to do your first due diligence online and then select the ones that make sense for you, where something about what they say connects with you. You're going to have those conversations first. Excuse me. And then you are going to have, however many you're going to choose. And then you're going to narrow those down to the ones that you liked and the ones that you didn't like. The ones that you like, you may want to have a second conversation to make sure that things align and come up with additional questions that you have with the coach that can be of support to helping you make that final decision. And then from there, if you need a third call, then you may need a third call. But I would be also, when you look at the evidence, but also at some point, you also want to trust your gut with who you choose, and looking at the kinds of support that you're looking for, who matches it as closely as possible, and that there's that good synergy between you and that individual. So what questions should I ask during a consultation call so I can be briefed about the end-to-end process of the services they offer? First, I would say from the perspective of the coaching, you want to get a sense of what that is going to look like. Of course, if you haven't gone through this process before, it may be difficult to know what to anticipate. So the better the mental picture you have of the coaching services, the more confident you're going to be of making the selection. It could be that the mental image that they paint for you, it does not match with what your expectations are, and that's perfect, because those are the things you want to know beforehand, and kind of continue, as with every conversation you have, refining your questions about the services and approach. Make sure that you're asking questions around the feedback methodology or the feedback mechanics. What is the process? What does the curriculum look like for that particular coach? What are the resources and tools? So go through the questions, go through the checklist that I had shared in the previous slide. So this way you can make sure that you are having a really informed decision when you select your coach, because this is a life-altering stage in your professional career. Obviously, you want the coach who is going to help you make that happen. So this means, obviously, you want to have as many conversations as possible. Excellent. Okay, we're going to go with the last questions. How do I ensure that I get supported to stay on track with my application timelines? Well, the coach should be actually following up with you through the application process and giving you to-dos that you should be working on. They will follow up with you. At the end of the day, of course, you're going to you are a free-willed individual who will determine if you want to put in the effort or not. But the coach should be guiding you along the way. And if you're struggling with something, they should be able to support you in various different ways, whether that's a workshop, whether that's send me what you have. It depends on, of course, your arrangement. The coach should also have some kinds of systems to help you work around your timelines and make sure that you are doing the materials that you need and setting aside time to actually do those things. So one of the things that I do offer is a focus sprint silent working session, which is, coming in a silent room with some binaural beats in the background and really working on the materials that you have been assigned to work on. This can be really transformative because you just get so much done in those focus sessions that will help you move the needle. And particularly if you're struggling, you then realize, okay, I'm really struggling with this. I'm not having all these distractions impede me from doing work, but I'm really struggling with this. And then you bring it to me if we would end up working together, of course. So look for those systems around what the coaches provide so that you make sure that you stay on track. And if you're falling behind, you don't want to just neglect it and not actually take any actions. So with that, we come to today's session. We close this session today, and I want to invite you to our next week's event where we're going to talk about the waitlist game plan. So if you've been waitlisted, or if you think that you may be waitlisted in this process, please join the session. Registration is on the link here, or if you go to SIA's website in the events page, you will see the event posted there as well, where you can register directly. If you want to discuss how I approach coaching and what are my mechanics and processes, I'm definitely happy to have that conversation. Please request a consultation with me for 30 minutes. We talk about your profile. We talk about what you're looking to do, and I get to know how I can support you through this process, and talk about what my services look like and if those match what you are expecting. So the consultation also, you can go to my website and CAadmissions.com and request a consultation call with me as well. Well, thank you. Hopefully you are enjoying your weekend, and I will see you on Thursday at 10 a.m.